Hey, Bill and Gunn, and welcome to the program, Black Law Tribal Edition, here on Yidindji Bama Channel. And if you're listening to this via the radio, it's via the Yidindji Broadcast Service, and of course our friends at Bama Media 98.7 FM. And if you're listening to the inside of Australia, it's via the National Indigenous Radio Service. And Ganyara, how are you today?
Oh, great. Thanks. Another beautiful day down in paradise.
It is another beautiful day in paradise, and guess what? We've got a great show for you today. And one of the things that we're looking at is the doctrine of discovery. Currently, as of right now, in the US, the Americans celebrating what they call Columbus Day. And but we know that a lot of the Indigenous peoples there call it a number of things, but they don't really like to celebrate it. So we'll go through that because it is an issue, and it's very similar here to with the Invasion Day / January 26 parallel, and so we'll be looking at that today, and of course many other things, including a few exciting developments on the way with the Yidindji government. We're about to announce a couple of new government ministers, which we can talk to you a little bit later on in the program. But Ganyara, let's talk about the Columbus Day. But before we do that, let's go to the video, and it's a news report from the US about Italian Americans wanting to celebrate Columbus Day because it's part of their heritage. So it's a very interesting look at this particular situation.
To me, it's very disturbing.
Carlos Veniglia has been coming to the Christopher Columbus Parade in Little Italy for more than 50 years. But there will be a lot less fanfare tomorrow.
We've never had problems. All of a sudden this year, it's like the world woke up and hated Columbus.
Christopher Columbus's place in history has come into question as activists condemn the explorer for mistreating Indigenous people. Protesters clashed with police over the summer when they tried to tear down his statue in Grant Park.
That statue is a symbol of white supremacy. That statue is a symbol of a history we need to acknowledge but divorce ourselves from.
3 months ago, the city removed all his statues, and Chicago Public Schools dropped his name from the federal holiday.
Like the October 12th holiday as Indigenous Peoples Day.
We want them to have their own holiday. We will march with them and celebrate and mourn everything that is all about the Indigenous people. We just don't believe that it should be at the cost or the expense of our federal holiday.
Some Italian Americans say celebrating Columbus is a celebration of their heritage.
It's not just about Columbus. It's bigger than that. It's about our heritage. It's about our food. It's about our culture.
A lot of us in the Italian community now see this as an anti-Italian movement.
Volunteers came together today to keep their traditions alive. Since the pandemic canceled the parade, the Joint Civic Committee of Italian Americans are hosting a rally at Arago Park tomorrow.
The neighborhood itself is all involved, and we've stretched out to many, many people.
The group says it doesn't need to be one or the other. It's important to respect all cultures and their holidays.
And destroying history, it's not really doing nothing. You know, you're just fooling yourself if you want to hide history.
When the city removed all the Christopher Columbus statues over the summer, the mayor said it was until further notice. We reached out to her office to see if they have plans to put them back up, and if so, what that timeline looks like, but we have not heard back yet.
Well, there you have it. Ganyara, a very interesting perspective on things. It is part of the Italian-American experience when you think about it. Christopher Columbus was an Italian explorer, but I think he was commissioned by the Spanish government at that time. And in 1492, people call it Genocide Day. They call it the end of many things, and the continuation of genocide in the United States, etc. But this is an interesting point of view in that there's a number of issues that I'm sure you can talk about.
Oh yeah, look, absolutely. The doctrine of discovery is not discovery in the true sense of the word as you'd find in the dictionary. It's as simple as that. Discovery in the dictionary means to go and find something new. You've just found it and there it is. But that's not what this means. The doctrine of discovery was a form of agreement amongst European nations, the colonial nations, that when they go and find something, you know, go and settle a new continent, for example, When they come to Australia, they said it was the act of discovery that brought the Australians here. Or when Columbus went to America, he discovered the North American continent. What that really meant was that amongst those European nations that had agreed that the first in time in discovering, the first in time of landing on the place, let's just call discovery landing on the continent and planting a flag there for your colonial nation. And that's really what it meant. When Chris got there, he was the first European nation under that new agreement called the Doctrine of Discovery to plant a flag there. They knew the continent was already there. You know, they've sailed around, they've found this place, and they knew it was there. But it's when Christopher Columbus went there and put the flag in for the Spanish government, that's discovery, just the same as when the British come out here to Australia. They knew the big landmass was here. They knew it was here. They knew there was a continent there.
Well, that's why they call it Terra Australis Incognita, the Great Southern Land.
Yeah, absolutely. And they come and put their flag in, which meant they were first in amongst that group of European nations that agreed on this Doctrine of Discovery. They knew it was there, so they didn't discover the continent. Everyone knew it was there, but they planted their flag. So over in America, Chris comes along in his sailing boat, plants his flag. And there's actually an interesting legal case regarding this, and it's Worcester versus State of Georgia versus Georgia. I think it was about 1832 or 1834, somewhere there. It's just, you can look it up online.
Well, let's have a look here on the web here. We can see it.
Yeah, and it actually says in there that the act of discovery entitled the first one to plant their flag the ability to, if the land, well, we'll go back to the land unoccupied. If the land is unoccupied, no one there, they claim it for their country, for their nation. The whole continent, whatever it is, was unoccupied.
Yeah.
But all the continents are occupied. We know that. So they get over there, and there are natives there. So when they got there, it gave them the first right or first crack of the whip to go and do deals with the natives, because the North American continent was covered with we'll call them Indians just to make it very easy, because that covers the whole broad range of native people there. So the Spanish come in. They had first crack of the whip of doing deals with them, signing up treaties, agreements, whatever it may be, to be present upon their territory. Mm-hmm. So that's all well and good. But in Worcester versus Georgia, it actually states there that the Doctrine of Discovery was only amongst the European nations. It did not affect the sovereignty of all the indigenous nations that were there before the colonial power come in. Mm. So in saying that, what really happened in North America? You see a lot of it, stolen lands, stolen everything. Is that really the case? Their treaties were done, but I'm starting to think now, and actually I'm starting to know now, that this is all about identity and how people walk off their land to go and take part in this new nation that's being built there by the colonial powers. So we'll look at Australia, for example. The Commonwealth of Australia, or the colonial world, didn't want the Aboriginal people. This is the white Australia, this is for white fellas only, for British subjects. Mm-hmm. We don't want black fellas in here. That's fair enough, that's their right to do that. Mm-hmm. That's their club. But it didn't affect our sovereignty. What did affect our sovereignty was when we walked off and wanted to join into that white Australia, and the same applies over there. When those, like the Cherokee, they were talking about the Cherokee and that one there in the state of Georgia. When the Cherokee wanted to join up to the US, to the United States government, into that realm, the new world that's being built there, they actually, the Americans didn't steal the land. The other people walked off their land, the land they owned pursuant to their law, to their sovereignty, the one that the act of, or the Doctrine of Discovery didn't affect. That one, they walked away from that law, and they owned that land under their original root title, under their original native title. Their natives have titles, that one.
Well, it was people chose to walk off their territory as well, but here we can see also that people were forced in the Worcester case. That's why Worcester was a Christian man, and as you can see here this is the Trail of Tears, where it says here that a number of Cherokee were being forcibly removed from their lands. And you can see that there's a number of interesting cases, like you said, information about this case rather, on the internet. And I think this is a very important thing here. It says what you're basically emphasising what you said. this in the court decision said this: the Cherokee Nation then is a distinct community occupying its own territory. So that means it's separate, in which the laws of Georgia, which is a foreign entity, can have no force, and which the citizens of Georgia have no right to enter, but with the assent, that's the royal assent, of the Cherokees themselves, or in conformity with treaties and with the acts of Congress. The whole intercourse between the United States and this nation is, by our Constitution and laws, vested in the government of the United States of America. That's pretty clear there. I think, there is this separate nation. They had their own customs and traditions. And the wonderful thing about Columbus Day is that it is a fact. But before that fact was this other world and continues to be there.
And that's a fact.
That is the fact, that is the Grundnorm, the underwriter, the whole lot. Same here on this continent, even though there's no treaties here, especially on the Yidindji Treaty, there's no treaty, Yidindji Territory rather. This is the whole point. The whole world is built on this realm that has been created, that's not the original, but by consent, by recruitment, by deceptive recruitment, forced assimilation, whatever you want to call it, the Aboriginal men and women and all the different tribal nations on this continent and the surrounding islands somehow have entered into this other realm called the Commonwealth of Australia. But now, once you know that, you've got two hats you can wear. You can go back to your law, which is what we're saying here, or you can participate in the Commonwealth of Australia if you so choose, as per Article number 5 of UNDRIP. But you can also build this other world, and that's what Yidindji continue to do.
Look, absolutely. As you said over there was a lot of forced assimilation. There really was. The white fellas moved in armed to the teeth. There was no way of holding that tide back. It was inevitable that genocide did take place. It would take place. It did take place. It took place there. It took place all around the world. Not only there in North America, but here in Australia, Tasmania, New Zealand. It's just taken place. Indonesia. It's everywhere. So this is what happens in the barbaric days of that Middle Ages period. From 1400 through to about 1900.
Yeah, and you can see the similarities here on the screen now. We got stolen land here with this is a shot not from this continent but somewhere else near Mount Rushmore, where all the American presidents are carved into stone over there. So there is a lot of similarities. This is the interesting one here. This particular advert, I'm not too sure. It's from 1911. It says advertising Indian land for sale. So possession within 30 days, get a home, perfect title. An Indian title would be the perfect title, but had they got the correct Indian title is what we would say. So we would ask those questions. But this is, like you said, and really that doctrine of discovery was, I guess, had the blessings of the Pope at the time and the papal bulls, the doctrine of discovery. And as we know, that's incorrect. And by the Church's own admission, or members within that church in the Catholic society, that is, they have admitted that that was wrong, and it's a fallacy.
Yeah, it should not have taken place, basically, and that's what happened out here in Australia. That's what happened in North America when the Spanish moved in. And I'd actually say to everyone, leave the statues of Columbus standing. Leave them as a reminder to show everyone that this is where the theft started. This is the bloke they all look up to and admire, and he started off he never done it himself, but that was the point of theft.
Yes.
So you can leave it there as an acknowledgement of the crooks that come after that. He led this thing of discovery, and I think in that case, Worcester versus Georgia, it actually states that the government was acting unlawfully by starting to seize assets and resources of it, if I remember right. So that was unlawful, and they admit that. Yeah, we should not have done that. We broke the law.
Yeah.
You can't gain stuff by breaking law. Like, I'll go and steal your car. I'm going to break the law and steal your car. Is it my car? No, it's not. It's still your car, because, you know, when the car is returned to you, then that settles the problem, you know. But I go and take it, that's theft. And that's exactly what happened here. It was theft. So leave the statue standing and have a kiosk underneath it and say, okay, anyone who wants to come and have a listen to what I'm going to say, this here is where the theft started. And let's point to the bloke and put him up in the lights. You know, this is the original point of theft.
I was quite surprised to learn that all the Columbus statues had been taken around that area, according to that news report. I thought maybe a few of them were attacked. I heard about that, but I didn't realise they took them down, or that they might have covered them, or whatnot. But that's a very interesting thing, because if they've done that under the instruction of the tribe through its government, then fair enough, you know. But and maybe that did happen. I'm not too sure. But at the end of the day, we really don't know. People would say they want to rip down the Captain Cook one here in the city of Gimoy. The tribal elders that we talk to certainly don't see that as a priority. It's about getting our government in line, in order. It's about this treaty process. These are the priorities. And through the Education Minister and through Tribal Council, is getting that Yidindji story and the message into the schools, out into the rest of the world. This is the priority. Anything else, you know, those things can be addressed later on down the track. However, at this current time, many have said that's a bit of a distraction.
Well, I'd leave the statue standing. I really would. Leave it there and show this is what all Australians look up to. The bloke who come and broke orders. He told lies when he got back to England. Oh, there was no one there. It was terra nullius, or, you know, they were that low in the mental capacity. They couldn't form a society. He went back there. He was told in his orders to go out and make friends with the natives when he got here. And if you can, buy some country off them. If there's no one there, claim the whole continent for the king.
Remember, the native title is the perfect title.
Absolutely.
As according to that, which is the Yidindji title.
Yeah, and Captain Cook, the statue in the city of Gimoy, stands on one of our land titles, by the way. Ours is the original title underneath.
Well, that's our property.
And it's our property, because whatever is affixed to our land, our country, it can't be removed without damaging the country, is our property.
Superficies solo credit.
Yep, so whatever's in your territory, claim it. And I'd put a little kiosk, and I'd like to put a kiosk underneath Captain Cook there, and all the tourists that come past say, look, this is the bloke that the Australians look up to. They all recognise him as the great person who discovered this place and found it and settled it for the British. In a kiosk, I'd put an educational bit there that this is the one they look up to, of the thief, of those who tell lies,
yes,
those who don't do the right thing under your orders. And that's what Australians look up to.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. One of the other points that we made was the doctrine of discovery. And a few years ago, we'll just go to to Pope Francis for a second. And an interesting character indeed. This is what he had to say. Now, Pope says the Yidindji must have final say about their land. Pope says Gunungurra must have final say about their land. The Pope says Kuguyalanji, Aranda, Japurong, everyone there. Put your name in there. Put your tribal people in there. The Pope, which has a he holds a significant power in that realm. Okay, we all know that. And he's saying that Indigenous people have final say on their land. And guess what? The Yidindji nation agrees. Not because he said it, because it's always been that way here. Okay? So I just found that interesting, Ganyara.
Well, look, I ask everyone, where's your government? Where's your government to represent your people in matters concerning your land, your resources? Where is it? We're all too busy being inside Australia. We're all too busy being inside North America, in the United States of America, sorry. We're all too busy being something else other than being in our true and correct capacity in our law, where we are the owners, and the Federal Court of Australia acknowledged that we own this place pursuant to our law.
Yeah.
You know, Mabo decided, that was decided in Mabo. You own this place. You're the original owners. You have the natives' titles.
Yeah, so we're not having a go at anyone, obviously, but we're just saying, have a think about that, because it's moved beyond a lot of these key milestones in the history on this continent. So it literally is. This is the message from the Yidindji nation now to go forth and govern yourself and take care accordingly. Govern yourself accordingly and take care, which means basically you don't have to do it if you don't want to. But if you don't do it, then the administrative body, the Commonwealth of Australia, is going to administer what it's created. And if you're an Australian citizen, then you have to subscribe to that point of view and to the actions that the Commonwealth of Australia takes. So this is why that this treaty is really, really important. The formal agreement, it will actually settle that matter good and proper.
Well, who's the treaty going to be between? And that's the problem. Who is it going to be between? Australia and... You see what I'm saying?
Indigenous Australia and Australia are the same thing.
One and the same thing, absolutely. All Australians are equal. All Australians have the same civil rights, be it Aboriginal Australian, be it Chinese Australian, be it British Australian.
On paper they are.
They're all paper. That's this thing. It's all about identity. And that's what I'm saying in the you showed a bit of a shot there of stolen lands in North America. I wonder if those people have understood what it is to be seen legally and politically in a society. Just what this identity thing is. All those citizens you see there, you see all their women. How many of them understand the legal identity that they're holding? The one they got in their pocket right now today. Do they understand that it's created by the United States or by their tribal law, and that they are neither? These people are the holders. They're using something like, you see there's one holding the flag up. They're using that flag as a symbol. Okay? So you can hold the legal identity like that. It's all about this piece of paper. We humans, just like kangaroos, just like koalas, or whatever. Yes. We're born, we live, we die. But we've got a mind of our own that lets us take part in something. We've got a choice. We can take part in the Commonwealth of Australia if we want to.
Yep.
And or we can go and take part in our law if we so choose, or we can take part in no law. We can step right out and become God's children if we really want. But then you become just like an ordinary, like the kangaroo, like the koala. Does it really matter if they protect you? Because law is a double-edged sword. Law gives you certain rights and protections, but also gives you certain obligations.
Well, if you live by the sword, you can die by it.
Absolutely. So, well, actually, now you mentioned that, you've actually signed your own death warrant by taking membership in one of the UN member states. People don't believe that, but you have signed your death warrant. If they want, they can kill you because you're taking part in one of the UN member states. I'll give you an example, perfect good example, the Bali 7, or the Bali 9, was it? Those kids that went over into Bali, got caught with drugs. How many got shot? A couple got shot out of that. That's because they subscribe to the Australian law, and Australia has a treaty with Indonesia that drug carrying. If it's severe enough, you face a death penalty, and they did. Those kids faced it, not knowing that they'd already signed their own warrant by taking part in the Commonwealth of Australia.
And that's the world of contracts and international law, because and I know you're very familiar with some of the laws in the Majlis laws,
Majest, yeah.
In Thailand, for example.
Yeah.
And I remember a few years ago now that an Australian man or a couple did something to the king's image on one of the properties, and they got arrested for that.
Oh, it's serious stuff over there. You can't, because over there the king is the head of state. He's the top dog, and all people that go in there through a citizen created by a UN member state, because it's under treaty now between those UN member states, that you'll abide by the laws of the realm, of Thailand, for example. And you won't criticise, defame, or say anything bad or slanderous about the King of Thailand. That's how sacred he is. So you see what I'm saying? When you take part in something, you'll abide by the laws and conditions of that nation that you take part in. Now, the Commonwealth of Australia will go out on your behalf and do treaties in amongst all the other UN member states. So when you travel over there, that their law applies to you. When they come here, their law applies to them, or your law applies to them, so that you can understand how this works. However, there is another world out there. That's only giving you one choice. There is another world, the Indigenous world, and that's where the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples makes it very clear.
And this is, as we mentioned last week, that world trying to auto-correct itself.
Yeah.
And saying, well, we better
Yeah.
pull our heads in, basically.
Well, we have every right. Just go to read Articles 3, 4 and 5. There's not much to read there. A couple little paragraphs of the UN Declaration.
We might do that actually later on in the program.
Yeah, and it makes it very clear that you have a right to go and revitalise all your stuff. This is Article 5. You've got a right to revitalise all your stuff, all your institutions, your education, government, courts, whatever it is, whilst you retain the right to participate in the life of the state. That means the Commonwealth of Australia or the United States of America or Canada.
Yep.
If, see, this is the big if. If
You so
choose.
Well, let's go to the Australian website now, the Australian Human Rights Commission, that proudly displays the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples on their website, and good on them. This is the website here, humanrights.gov.au. It's a government website. So let's go through some of these articles. Article 3. Ganyara, if you want to read that one, and if you can you read that? I'll go read that because the screen's closer to me. So there it is, Article 3. Indigenous peoples have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their, 1, political status, and freely pursue, 2, their economic, social and cultural development. That sounds like self-government to me.
It's the first part of it. But you have choices to determine who you're going to be seen legally and politically through.
Yes.
You can be seen legally and politically through the one of the state, the citizen of the state, or you can be seen legally and politically through the citizen of the Indigenous nation that you're taking part in. If you have a look at Article 4.
Article 4 says this: Indigenous peoples, in exercising their right to self-determination, have the right to autonomy or self-government in matters relating to their internal and local affairs, as well as ways and means for financing their autonomous functions. That's pretty clear. That's pretty clear to me that Australia, the Commonwealth of Australia and all the UN member states have put their signatures to saying, Yidindji, you can create your government, even though we're not going to tell you what to do because you're your own sovereign, you have your own sovereignty. We can't tell you what to do, but we agree with it.
Absolutely.
Because we're on your land, Yidindji.
Yeah. Look, you create your stuff. You've got a choice again. Your own, you can go and look after yourself. And the best way to describe it is the first in time law is the best in time law. Ours was first and it's still here. It's still continuing to this very day. And that's what gives us the right and the ability to start to create legal identity. This is what I'm saying. You can take part in these worlds. Australia, Yidindji.
Show the camera a little bit closer there. See
Yeah.
where we go.
Oh, that's the Yidindji one. There's no ifs and no buts about what it is. Whenever you see that out there, that's created by the Yidindji government, by the sovereignty.
Yep, and that's a ministerial badge, which means only government ministers representing the sovereign Yidindji government actually hold that particular identifier.
Or you can take part in the life of the state, as this one is in a driver's license. So you can have this identity issue. But which one am I? I'm neither. These are two things that I'm holding in my hand. I'm neither of these. I can take part in Australia, I can take part in Yidindji, or I can take part in none. I can just put them all away.
Yeah.
But it's the authority that creates these documents, like Constitution. They create those documents. I am neither of those. So Yidindji own one, Australia own the other.
And as we saw in the President Andrew Jackson in Worcester versus Georgia in the United States back in the olden times, it said there that the Cherokee Nation had its own laws and its own sovereignty, and that the state of Georgia could not enforce its laws on Cherokee unless the Cherokee Nation gave it assent to perform certain functions on its territory.
You mean a treaty, and that's what these two documents are all about. A treaty lets these two documents live side by side. It's a marriage. It lets them two exist.
That's the peace pipe.
It is, but that's the original law. That's the first in time law. That will never go away. This is the sovereignty that is acknowledged in the Uluru Statement from the Heart. And they coexist side by side. But there's no treaty yet.
This one says it's helpless.
It is useless and helpless. Because
that's one in Australia, right?
It is. That's Australia.
This one's not.
Well, who give this consent? The original owners of the
The
place.
royal assent, actually.
So, that's got consent. Has this one got consent? You know, does the original people given Australia consent to be here yet? No, it hasn't. That's because there's no treaty. Now, when you start to break the terms and conditions of a treaty, as what happened over there with the Cherokee, where's the treaty now? It's dead in the water. The Cherokee can go back to their legal identity that's created under their law. They can go back to that and say, okay, we're back. We're going to start to do our thing. We've got the right. We know we've got the rights under Article 3, 4 and 5 of UNDRIP.
Yes.
To autonomy, to self-government. Now start taking charge of your resources.
Well, this is it. I mean, we're going back to the Pope again. Remember, it was from his office that the doctrine of discovery took place. So the Pope at the time, I can't remember which one, I failed to recollect that. But anyway, moving on, his office said to Germany, Spain, whoever, Portugal, go out and whatever you discover is yours. Now, come back to recent times, only 3 years ago now, this Pope is saying, you know what? Indigenous peoples must have their final say about their land. Not should, must. That's a very big difference. So that's what we're saying to you guys out there. Have a look at it. You don't have to do it. I mean, you know, it is a bit hard, but at the end of the day, you know, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
It's got to be done. Now, if you go to Article 5 of UNDRIP, the UN Declaration of Rights for Indigenous People, the Pope is right. They must have a say on their land. It's their land. That's the problem. Now, Article 5.
You want to have a go reading that?
Yeah, you can. You can read out Article 5. It's on your side.
Okay. Well, let's have a look at this now. I'll just cut to the screen here. Article 5. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain. That means it's ongoing, and strengthen their distinct political, legal, economic, social and cultural institutions while retaining their rights to participate fully, if they so choose, in the political, economic, social and cultural life of the state. This goes back to your point again, that there's two distinct political, legal, economic, social and cultural institution realms. Those two things there. That's Australia. That's Yidindji.
Which one am I going to choose?
On paper.
I've got a choice. Now, under Article 5, I've got a choice.
Which jurisdiction you want to be under?
Absolutely, and that's the thing. Which one do I want to subscribe to? Which one do I want to be seen legally and politically through?
Right now, you're talking through that, because
Absolutely.
this is a Yidindji government broadcast
Absolutely.
program.
So this one, first in time, it's best in law. It is the main law on this part of the world. It is. There's no ifs and no
It's
buts.
even flashy, you know, flashing on the camera there. It's pretty good.
But there is no better law. Now, Article 5 says we have a choice. We didn't say we had a choice.
We didn't write that. They said exactly
They said
right. That's what I love about
we
this.
have a choice. And it's correct. We do have a choice. We as humans have a choice to participate in any of this stuff if we so choose. But we have a choice to take part in which one of those we like, because we have first in time law connection to it. Where does Pauline Hanson have connection to, for example? Poor woman. I feel a bit sorry for her. Does she have the same connection as what we do to somewhere? She has, but quite obviously not in this part of the world.
Yes, well, you're listening to Black Law Tribal Edition right across the country today, thanks to the Yidindji Broadcast Service and our friends at Bama Media 98.7 FM. You're also watching Black Law Tribal Edition on Yidindji Bama, which is the Yidindji Broadcast Service's #1 channel, and we've only got 1 or 2 shows on it. So, but we're building it, and that's the main thing. You know, and from a few years from now, we'll see how that develops. And I'm very excited to say that this is good fun. Kenyara, we're going to go to some of the feedback online now. Some of it's quite funny. This guy here on the Facebook site saying, just wondering if Yidindji Bama can sign a treaty with me. I'm willing. It may set a powerful sovereign precedent. Any ideas? Yes, we've got a few ideas, and that's not one of them. Depends on what office he's holding or what personalities he's using. because if he's using an Australian one, then he has to talk to his Prime Minister to say, can we treat it with Yidindji?
Yeah, he's going to do a Governor Burke Batman thing. Back then, when Batman went to acquire the lands around Melbourne, what's now Melbourne, Burke came out in 1835 and said, no, look, you can't do that. I'm the boss here. You're a British subject. I'm the boss. Do as you're told and get back into line. So the same would apply here. The holder of that citizenship, who actually owns that citizenry is being seen legally and politically through. Now, if it's the Commonwealth of Australia or some other UN member state, it's got to be the head of the UN member state and not the subjects of the UN member state. And that's something that's very important to remember. If you're seen without that, now you might have tribal capacity somewhere. Now that's a different story. Now if your tribe has authorised you to go forward and do a treaty, different thing altogether. That's a whole different realm. But if you're talking about in UN world, you can't do it.
You know, one of the other interesting conversations I had with a legal academic, a very, very knowledgeable man, he was asking the question, well, Queensland has sovereignty inside the Commonwealth of Australia that may have special powers. And I reminded him that for international agreements with France, and because they were foreign to the Commonwealth of Australia, the same with the United States and Israel and all that kind of stuff, if we're not part of Australia, as in Yidindji, then who does the treaty or the international agreement? Is it DFAT inside of the Commonwealth, or is it Premier and Cabinet Anastasia Palaszczuk? So this is quite simple, but even then, they're still questioning it.
Look, there's multiple cases, court cases over this, so the legal precedents, and basically they reference back to the colonial world, and the colonies were never sovereign enough to enter into agreements. That was for the realm of Britain here. And the states, as they say there, and the states of Australia are still not sovereign enough to enter into international agreements. And anyone that goes outside of that, it goes over and above Australia, is acting unconstitutionally. Because the states are created subject to the Australian Constitution. They may have some powers. There's forms of sovereignty there, but there's levels of sovereignty.
His particular position or premise was that because the states created the Commonwealth, that was their child.
It is their child. It belongs to them. They can slap the child too if it misbehaves. But what I'm trying to say with states, they are not sovereign enough to go out and do international treaty with India, for example. So can Queensland go and do a deal with India? No, it can't. That's for the Commonwealth of Australia to go and do. Now, we are foreign. We are never part of it. We were never part of Australia. There's no treaty. There's no agreement. Our society was excluded 100% from participating in the life of Australia. We were never Australian. There's no argument over that. Their court has said so. And we own that. We own this place pursuant to that law that was never part of Australia. That's something that the High Court and the Federal Court have acknowledged.
I think the other most important thing is that it doesn't matter who created what and where. At the end of the day, on the Yidindji territory, Yidindji owns the land pursuant to its law. It's not Queensland law. It's not Australian law. It's not French law. It's not law from Saturn or any other planet around the place. It is actually from this place here. So the whole point is that Australians and inside of Australia, they may have a cause or to question that who is actually the boss. At the end of the day, because first in time is often preferred at law, and that world is saying Yidindji own it pursuant to their land, they're a pre-1770 society, they're before Cook and they're still here today, that means the Yidindji nation is the boss.
Well, I would say go to Article 8 of 100. The UN Declaration of Rights that we didn't make, we didn't sign, but we agree with it.
I'll read that one as well.
Yeah, you can read that, and then we'll go to Article 28 after this. We'll go to Article 8 first.
Okay, Indigenous peoples and individuals, so let's say the Yidindji nation, have the right not to be subjected to forced assimilation or destruction of their culture.
That means we're not going to be bound by their law inside the Commonwealth of Australia. We can't be forced to take part. We can't be forced to take part in the laws of Australia, under the laws of Australia. We can't be forced in there.
Yes.
Pretty simple, isn't it? Our law is outside of Australia, and we can't be forced to take part in there. Well, they're talking about the countryside now, and this is the real sticking point for Australia. Go to Article 28, because until we're paid for the place, until we are paid for, it's still our place. And can they afford to pay us or give us back our land or whatever it may be? You see, this is what I'm saying. they have acknowledged that we are separate. They've acknowledged under court case that we're never part of Australia, that we own the place pursuant to our law. They acknowledge that we've got all these rights that they agreed to, that was the intention of the Commonwealth of Australia when they signed UNDRIP, the UN Declaration on Rights for Indigenous Peoples, that the Indigenous peoples have all these rights even seen by their world.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Brother Ganyara, but Australians voted for a government and for governments that did that. Queenslanders voted for an Australian government to conduct that business at an international level on their behalf. Is that correct or not?
Absolutely, because this is done at the UN. So Australia is a member state. So Australia has handed some of its sovereignty up to the United Nations. So it's like the state of Queensland and the relationship between Queensland and Australia. You know, all Queensland citizens, including the state of Queensland, are subject to some laws of Australia, like using money, for example, or defence or whatever. Now, Australia has handed some of its sovereignty up to the United Nations. So now we've got 3 levels of sovereignty. And so Australia now, by taking part of being an international citizen, has agreed to some of the rules and conditions of the UN. So that's the one world government. That's it there, the UN.
It's a bit of a dog's breakfast, to be fair.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it is. However, the remedy, what is the remedy? The Yidindji nation saying to the state of Queensland, saying to the Commonwealth of Australia, and saying to the United Nations, listen, we can fix this. We understand your predicament, but not only do we have a remedy, but we have an ongoing plan to look after all citizens.
Go to Article 28.
Let's do that. So Article 28 says this. I'll put it on the screen there for you. Indigenous people, Yidindji, have the right to the conservation... Oops, wrong one. Yidindji have the right to redress. The Yidindji have a right to restitution, or when this is not possible, of a just, fair and equitable compensation for the lands, Yidindji's territories, Yidindji's resources, which Yidindji traditionally owned or otherwise occupied or used, and which has been confiscated, taken, occupied, used or damaged without their free, prior and informed consent. Unless otherwise freely agreed upon by the peoples concerned, compensation shall take the form of lands, territories and resources equal in quality, size and legal status, or of monetary compensation or other appropriate redress.
Okay.
How much is a tree worth? How much is genocide worth? How much is a life? How much is deceptive recruitment? How much is the price? What is the price of crime on the Yidindji territory?
Okay, let's go right to the start. Has any mob, any tribe, any nation had any of those 3 things done to them? Have they got their land back? Have they been given someone else's land of equal stature? Or have they been paid for it yet? If not, it's still yours. No ifs and no buts about it. It's still yours.
Do you want Manhattan Island in exchange for it?
No, it's already, that's owned
by...
That's
somebody else's mob, right? That's
already owned by another Indigenous nation over there, so
exactly.
we can't take it.
So what can they give us?
Well, can they give us back our land?
No, they never owned it. That's why in the federal court it says, I come here today to give you nothing. So you already own it.
You own it under your own law. Go back to your own law and re-own your property, re-own your territory.
It's not stolen land, it's sitting there waiting for you to come home and to be the boss of it.
And that means simply to abandon this Australian identity, go back and create your identity.
To look after that one there.
To ensure that this one, which will be subsidiary, which will be secondary, will have a right to be on your territory. But you own this under your law. You own the territory under your laws and customs that have always been there. How much more simple does it have to get?
Yeah, and look, the Yidindji nation has no, at this stage, I haven't spoken to the sports minister, but there's no intention to play as a Yidindji nation at the Rugby League World Cup. I think most Yidindji blokes and women will probably put on a green and gold jersey. But there needs to be that treaty to look after it.
That allows them to participate in the life of the state if they so choose and are in accord with Article 5. Do they have a choice at this stage? Have the Australians voted to let the Indigenous people in? Have the Commonwealth of Australia agreed to change the intention of the Australian Constitution? It's not the Constitution that's racist or biased or anything like that. It's the minds of those who wrote it. And this was the White Australia outpost in the South Pacific.
100%.
This was the home for the British. Sure was. But where has that changed? They've got to rewrite that part if they want to. Ask themselves, do we want to let Yidindji in, or any of the non-white fellas in? Do we want to let them in? And then we can't be forced to assimilate under Article 8 of UNDRIP, as it made very clear there. We can stay in our own sovereignty, under our own law, under our own custom, where we own the place. Can't be forced to take part in Australia, where we own this under our own law, or Article 5, we can go and participate in the life of the Commonwealth of Australia if we so choose. We have a choice.
And this is the thing, Australians who will question their own legal system and the laws and constitutional powers and all these other things, at the end of the day, whether they like it or not, Australia has committed to UNDRIP. Australia at the international law level has agreed and supported in writing. It's declared that it supports the Yidindji nation and its right to self-government. So we're not the ones that you should be questioning. Not that particular man was, but I would say that's where we need to go with it. Have a talk to your Prime Minister about that. Have a talk to your Attorney General about that, and see what you come up with.
Well, all Australians should be talking to the Prime Minister or the Federal Attorney General or the Governor General. There's no ifs and no buts about that. They all should be asking the question, what are we doing trespassing on their country? And it was actually said to me one day by one of the senators that Australia can simply pull out of the UN and pull out of the UN Declaration of Rights for Indigenous People. Well and good, you can. They sure can. But they've shown 11 years of intention. Up until then, when they pull out, if they want to pull out today, there's 11 years of intention of what they intended, what they meant, why did you sign up for that for? If you didn't agree with it, don't sign up for it. So they showed intention that, yeah, we'll support these documents, we'll support this belief that the Indigenous people can go and rebuild their world.
You want to continue to support the racist narrative?
Well, and there becomes the problem. Now, there's a lot of Aboriginal people inside Australia. Has it ever been explained once to them what is actually it is to be holding citizenship inside the white Australia? Has it ever been explained to them in a manner that they can understand? Remember, this is contract law. I participate in either of these societies. I can participate in one or both, but I've got to understand the terms and conditions of the contract to allow me to participate in those societies.
Yeah, and one of those things too is, Ganyara is a good segue into, if you want to learn how to participate in your world, then we can show you how we did it. And if you look at the websites here, we can show you that here we can go onto the issue.com /Yidindji there. You can see the government documents here. You mentioned the ministerial badge there, Ganyara. This is the laws that we created to let the world know, hey, guess what? Any man or woman carrying this badge here is a minister of the sovereign Yidindji government, or acting through that personality and that office. And this is where we're going with it now. Have a look there, have a play, because it's all there for you to have a look at. You don't have to agree with it. You can just say, yep, thanks very much, that's not for me, that's fair enough too. So it's all there though. It lists all our offices, and we're talking about the economic and institutions and all that kind of stuff. There's the Department of Treasury. There you go. If you have a look here, this is the website for on Facebook, Yidindji Bama there. You'll find a number of the things there. This is where we post some of the shows as well. And if you go and you're using Twitter, you can go and Yidindji Gov with a T on the end is the there we go, is the handle for the Yidindji government. And LinkedIn also now has a Yidindji government page. We can click on here. If you use LinkedIn for businesses and things like that, the Sovereign Yidindji government has a page now on LinkedIn, because guess what? You guys wanted to know more information. And there you can see videos and other little bonus features that are posted on there. And we've got 7 minutes left in the program, Ganyara. I think it's very, very timely, again, to really have a think about this for all the different tribal societies on the continent that may want to look for something else that's outside of the Australian realm.
Look, there's a lot of people approaching me, black, white and brindle. I tell you now, And I mean a lot of white fellas that are very sick and tired of what's going on inside Australia. But it's not only here, it's around the world. There's this movement building, you can see it, where nations are running out of resources, they're running out of water, they're running out of good arable land. And because we haven't ceded any of our authority yet, we haven't treated anything away, think about this. And as I said on the other show, think about it. What would happen if one of those countries that are running out of water, for example, or arable land, or they're being submerged under rising sea levels? What if they come and approached us and said, we will fund you to take it to the, we'll take something to the international courts to see if Australia has a legal foundation to be here. How can Australia prove that it has the right to be here? Because it's saying to everyone, we don't have a treaty yet, we have unfinished business here, we haven't done the right thing by the original people. How can they hold their head in the court and say, oh yeah, we got consent to be there? They'd be telling lies if they did, just like what happened over in Georgia, over there with the Cherokee. The Americans just said, oh, we'll just start lying about this and we'll just start stealing and plundering. Like when Cook come here, we'll just tell lies. You can't do that anymore. It's all over. It's too late for that.
Yeah, Red Rover.
We've got to be honest, we've got to be fair, we've got to be able to tell the truth and accept the truth, and then we've got to be able to work our way forward so we can settle the past, and then we can secure the future for everyone, including all the Australians. Where do they go? Poor buggers, they don't have anywhere to go. They don't have a territory. We have territory. Where's theirs? And that was the idea of offering the first step, an MOU to go down the road to a treaty. Just, if you want to go down this way, let's just talk. Let's just start to sit down and nut out the way forward with this. It wasn't a full-blown treaty at the time. It wasn't right down to the last, every I being dotted and every T being crossed. Let's go down the roadway together. Let's do this hand in hand together, and just something for all people, including the Australian citizens. We've got everything for ourselves. We can go back to our law. We can go back, rebuild it. We can go back and do our stuff. Where can the Australians go? Believe it or not, if they want to take up citizenship here under this government, they can abandon Australia altogether. Now, what would happen in our territory if 200,000 Australians abandon Australian citizenship? Because it's only contract law, and you can give it away. You can rescind it. You can unilaterally rescind the contract of citizenship. What would happen if they all joined up to our lot? Our population just grew by 200,000 overnight because the Australians abandoned Australian law. Think of the consequences for Australia.
Yeah,
Or if North Korea come here or China come here, for example,
said,
okay, we'll cede our territory to you.
Yes.
It's pretty serious knock-on effect, isn't it?
Yes. And look, it's all philosophical.
But one senator said to us, you have every right to do it.
Yes. And listen, that brings an end to the show, unfortunately. But thanks for joining us. We do appreciate your comments and your feedback. And it's always good to catch up on a Tuesday. We love doing this. And we wish you well wherever you are. And don't forget to look at those Facebook, those social media sites and interact with us if you want to. Alternatively, you can also email protocol@yidindji.org and conduct some business no matters there. You might not have a question about certain things, and you may want to even have a private conversation with the Yidindji government. And but anyway, may God's peace be upon you wherever you're watching this program, and through His only begotten Son Yeshua HaMashiach is the way, the truth, and the life for me. But you take care, and we'll catch you next week. Garu.
Hey, Garu.